Probably the question is, what don't I collect more than what I do I collect? But what I collect is what I consider cool. And perhaps it's even what I consider uncool, but it's so uncool that it's cool. I collect musical instruments. I have Airstreams full of them, as well as my extra room. I can't have guests because it's full of keyboards and guitars, synthesizers, psychoacoustic effects devices, and that sort of thing. But I never plug them in. In fact, I don't even play an instrument. I have no musical capability whatsoever. Yes, I do think that collecting is addictive. It's those little perks you get when you do find that little nugget in that little, you know, that little bit of gold in the rough, but that diamond in the rough. But and I guess that little blast of adrenaline is addictive, and in probably a biochemical way, I think it becomes that way, but it's all sort of it becomes a surrogate, a replacement for actual experience. I think for actual meaningful experience, it can, to where you're suddenly interacting with inanimate objects. You know, you're developing a relationship with rubber and plastic, and possibly to the detriment of living matter. The reason I fear this, that I'm becoming a hoarding individual, is that I'll get things and I'll put them away and I'll totally forget that I even have them. And then when I find them again, it's like rediscovering them again. And I suppose that qualifies me as a hoarder, because I'm not giving them away as gifts. I'm not displaying them. I'm just putting them away. I'm not necessarily anticipating selling them and buying food or necessities. I would rather have some cool collectible occupying some place in space than just emptiness. I'm lucky to have a girlfriend.
Well, we're talking outside today because there's really not a great amount of room left in my house to do an interview like this in there and be comfortable. So I kind of realized that. I even had to straighten up before you guys came, so. Oh, my house is very full. Chock to the brim, I would actually say. Garage too, attic, one complete full bedroom. Even in my own bedroom, I have toys all around by me, so where I sleep, so they're everywhere. I can't get away from them in a way. Some people would think it's kind of kooky, but I don't mind. Well, I collect action figures because when I wanted my old toys that I had when I was a child, I asked my mom, you know, where are our old toys that we have? And she says, oh, they're up in the attic in boxes and they're all signed and there's stuff on, you know, yours are up there. I dig around and find up in the attic, there's my box. I open it up and there's one G.I. Joe foot left and that nothing else. And I just, that's it. So, and then I realized, well, my little brother played with all my toys and played with them to death till they were gone. And then I wanted them back. So then I ended up going on the net and buying my old toys back. I'd even buy them in better condition than I had them. You know, I'd buy them in the boxes or loose or, you know. Then I wanted all of them. So I ended up trying to buy every one of them from a certain year to the next year, and I would end up doing that. If my house burnt down and I could save just one thing, I would probably take my Batarang, which is a '66 television show boomerang that Batman used, Adam West, on the TV show. I don't think I could ever replace it, so that would be a real sad loss for me. I usually, some of my fondest memories that I have when I'm a child is when I was playing with toys and stuff like that. Those are usually the most fondest memories, and then I find out, well, that's the fondest memories of everybody. So I would find toys that I had when I was a kid that I'd never have for years and years and years, that would completely forget about it. Find the toy, have it in your hand, and go, oh my God, I remember this on this day, and all these things would start flooding back in your memory banks. And I would just say, that is just so cool. I would have never remembered that if I wouldn't have held this toy. So that's probably why I do it.
A lot of people ask me why I collect, and you know, the real honest answer is I don't know. Well, I collect America Online, CD discs, and AOL discs, and I have hundreds of thousands of them, and they're all over my house, and they're out in my shop, and they're in my basement. Thank heavens AOL has stopped producing them because there aren't the masses now that there used to be. I collect these because I think the graphics are neat, the packaging is unique, nobody else wants them, they're cheap because everybody gives them to me. And I started this ball rolling years ago, and it's just like a snowball going down a hill. It gets bigger and bigger, and I can't stop it. And sometimes I'm overwhelmed by how many I have, and like finding new storage places for them. And so, you know, kind of like a merry-go-round. Sometimes I want off, and it's sometimes bigger than me. I started out getting these in the mail just like everybody else, and I go, oh, this is kind of interesting, and so I threw it in a box. And pretty soon the box was full, and then I started another box, and one winter day I got these boxes out. I don't know why, maybe I was going to throw them away or something, but I started looking at them. I go, this is interesting. This one kind of matches this, and I look back and forth, and I go, well, go. And I started making these piles, and I thought it was interesting. And so some of my friends were over, they saw the piles, and what are you doing with this? And I says, well, I'm collecting. And I go, I am collecting these. And the word of mouth spread between my friends and at work, and pretty soon it's that snowball that it just started. And even in my book I refer to that I get packages at my front door in the mail from people that I don't even know from across the country, and it's amazing how it just took off.
My name's Melissa. I live in Seattle, Washington, and I collect antique purses. Pretty much focus in on anything 1920s and earlier, but lately I've started to be kind of pulled into 1930s, 1940s, I guess more of the vintage era. So this is, I guess, what started it all for me. This was the box that was at my grandma's house, and I had heard of Asprey of London and knew that it was a really fancy store, and I'm like, gosh, who would save a box for 60 years or 80 years or whatever? So then I opened it up, and there it was. And it was just like a painting done by hand with needle and silk thread. Only it was a purse, something that you would use, something that definitely belonged to a woman. I think what attracts me to the antique purses is the quality, the workmanship, the beauty, the fact that there are no two that are alike. This is the new type of antique purse that I'm really into right now. It's called Silk Stitch, and it's all embroidered with tiny, tiny threads, by hand, by candlelight, into a gorgeous scene. In this case, people, animals, flowers, plants, trees, a building in the distance. And I always like to have my needle-worked purses. I don't really want them unless they have different scenes on each side. Some of the lesser quality ones have the same scene on both sides. To me, you know, you might as well have a different piece of work, a different work of art on each side. Of course, this one has a gorgeous jeweled and enameled frame too, which does not hurt. My husband, he has mixed feelings, I would say. He calls himself a purse widow sometimes when he's joking around. One time when I was playing with my purses, he came in and he had a post-it note on his chest and it said, "Talk to me, I'm a beaded scenic." I think the characteristics that make a really good purse are the materials and the workmanship. So, for example, on a beaded purse, if the beads, the smaller, the better. There are beads that are so tiny they are like grains of sand. In fact, there's a word for it, sable, that means grain of sand in French or something like that. And so with those beads being so tiny and they were all hand knit into this incredible scene with people and castles and clouds and flowers and this kind of thing, though that obviously would make a really good purse. Here is the photo of the woman actually using her purse, and here is her purse. Isn't that great? So who wouldn't want to collect this? Who on earth would not want that? So this is by far my hugest purse. This is one of a kind, really. This is all steel, French steel beads. Do you want to feel how heavy it is? It's incredible. This weighs tons, and it was never really used. This was most likely an advertisement that would hang, just like in the olden days when they would have a big shoe outside for the cobbler. They would hang this giant purse to let ladies know that they could buy their French steel beaded purses at that establishment. Isn't that, not only is this amazing because it's huge, it's also amazing because the beads are so tiny and it's got a bright, vivid color of beads, whereas most French steels are kind of more muted tones to have these bright colors. And it's in a fantastic pattern, a very complicated Persian rug pattern. It's just amazing as I even look at it right now, and I've looked at it 1,000 times. And it's in amazing condition. I've never wanted to stop collecting them. Feel so lucky. I feel so lucky that I feel the way I feel about them. I wish everybody had something that they collected and felt passionately about and had so much fun with.
Violin solo, jigs and reels, played by Charles Dalmain, Edison Record.
I collect antique radios, radios that were built between 1900 and, about the end of the vacuum tube, 1940s. When I was 9 or 10 years old, I ran across this one-tube radio, and something about it, the wood, the way it was made, just fascinated me. I've always believed that the value of any collection is what it can offer the future. Now, early on in my collecting, I really didn't think this way. I was buying just radios for myself, what interested me. But as I got older, I realized that the collection that I had built up had real value for the future because we were moving into a digital world. The idea for the museum began when my daughter graduated from high school. I realized at that time that none of her friends, and even my daughter, didn't really know much about this early period of our technology, if you will, of radio technology in particular. And I realized that I had this collection, so I thought, well, maybe it would be a good idea to build or put together a small museum, and that's what I did. It was more or less like glorified storage. I think that it makes sense now that you mention it, that 30% of America collects. because our whole system is based upon the object. It's not, we're not really, we're buyers. We want to buy, we want to consume, we want to gather things, buy things. Every day we're being swamped with advertising to buy, spend, spend, spend. And that has to, in a way, translate to people putting a kind of almost a magical kind of value on things. Like, well, if I have a million matchbooks, or if I have, and they're all different, and you lay them out, wow.
Okay, what am I supposed to do? Go in the studio? Right. We are in my recording studio. This is a video and audio production company. I've been in business for about 20 years, and aside from working on my own projects and others, I collect Knotters bobbing heads. I found my first Knotter in Portland, Oregon. I was on a film shoot down there, and often on film shoots there's a lot of downtime waiting for a setup or an actor or something. So I would go around, cruise the town, hang out in bookstores or antique shops. And I went into this one place. It was really pretty burned out, dusty antique shop. And when I walked in, I swear, there was this beam of light shining through the window onto a little Hawaiian Knotter. And I looked down and it was like, duh! I picked it up and I've been hooked ever since. So I guess I would say that I'm pretty much addicted and definitely habitual. I keep some of the bobbing heads in the studio here. They like to rock out when the tunes are cranking, and they'll bobble their heads. And then the clients also like them. It usually gives us something to talk about. So let's go in and I can show you guys some more. Lately, I haven't seen any Knotters that I really don't have. I'm not into the sports ones, so I'm into the advertising, character Knotters, and so I pretty much have most of them. The few that I don't have are so hard to find and very expensive. These particular ones are made from plaster. These were made in the 50s and 60s. The new ones are made out of plastic, and those don't interest me. But these are specifically 50s, 60s, and they were made of plaster, and they didn't last very long. People would break them. If you bobble their heads, they often break. My favorite ones are usually ones that are so unique that I'm going to reach up here and grab these. Whoa. And I don't even know what they are or who they are, but I just really enjoy how they look, and I've never seen anything quite like them. They probably don't mean much to anybody else other than myself, but when people see them, they're usually kind of freaked out about it, and I don't know why they are. I don't know. I work in that space. I work in there with all these characters in my space, and it's very comforting for me. Addiction is a word that I can associate with collecting. There's no doubt about it. There's phases like anything. There's high times, low times, all those things. And I think that that can be unhealthy sometimes.
If our house was to burn and everyone was safe, the cat, everyone's out, I probably would take the giant ball of string, which for me is about, I mean, I jokingly said earlier that it was that was my inheritance. And that has been around in my family for years. And so I think that would be the thing to take. I think everyone has a different methodology for collecting. And I mean, for us, it's about event to celebrate something, whether it's a birthday, an anniversary. That's what it's kind of transformed into. So the toys, like the 10 toys, each one, now we're starting to mark them with a date or something, with some kind of, to create our own history. And I have my own theory about gay couples collecting and creating a home, and I think it's not my theory, but we create a nest for ourselves as a form of protection because our lives are so often private, in the private sphere, primarily the home, so that the collecting becomes an extension of that. Mm-hmm. And then, the thrill of it, the thrill of the hunt, and the thrill of, which I think is that universal sensation of finding something. It's right. Like Christmas, or it's that rush that you get when you find something you want, and if you get it for a reasonable price. And we've had little squabbles.
What happens if you want to buy something
and
I don't want it? Or
right.
I don't think we've ever...
Oh, come on. Yes, we have.
We have?
We've had, because like the Romco ware is...
Well, probably you more than me, because you're always wanting to buy something.
Yeah, right. Mm-hmm.
But I don't really recall down and out arguments.
I do, because like with the Romco ware, as Pierre mentioned earlier, initially it was like 25 cents, 50 cents, but now it's gone up in price.
Right.
And there are these pieces that Pierre wants, and I think we paid up to like $45 for one piece, which,
If it's something if it's a shape that I don't already have,
that's part of the addiction.
Is that much more attractive, no matter what the cost is. Romco ware, and it's sort of turn-of-the-century pottery, called pine-scented pottery. It was originally bought at tourist locations like the Grand Canyon or Saguaro National Forest, things like that. And originally, between the 20s and the 50s, people would buy this as a memento of the places that they visited. So the interior, beautiful green interior, had this pine scent perfume that was on them. And then they had this faux wood finish that I thought was just so tacky when I first saw it. But the shapes were very unusual to me, and I just fell in love with it.
The reason I believe that some people don't share their collections is that it can be a very private act of collecting, and that people like to hoard. Part of hoarding is the private act of keeping it for yourself. It's like a little kid with all their marbles. I mean, I think you hoard and you don't share them with anyone else. So that's the history of collecting. That's the history of the museum. That's the history of colonization and possessing something is to own it and to keep it. And I think it's a fetishistic act of coveting something.
Mostly I collect axes and saws, and then all the small tools that are related to logging and for sharpening saws. About half of the axes I have here are, in this room, are right along the wall here. And then I have another room that I can show you later. It has several axes, about nearly this many. And then I have several that don't have handles on them. They're just the heads. And they're in boxes and drawers and so forth, and Probably altogether I have somewhere around 1,000 axes. I haven't counted them, so I don't know for sure, but judging from certain sections, I would say there's somewhere around 1,000 axes altogether in the collection. I think sometimes that it's almost like an addiction. I had a friend, as a matter of fact, he collects antique tractors, and he calls the illness moreitis. It's like an addiction. More is better. But he said he has a cure for moreitis. He says if he goes out and finds another tool to buy, he says it cures that need for having more, and it lasts usually for a week or two, and then he starts having the effects of moreitis again, and he's found that the only cure for it is to go out and buy another one. So he's got probably the same problem I do. It's moreitis. What would happen if everything caught on fire? What would I say? Which axe? Is there a certain tool I'd want? And I says, and yes, there is. I've got one axe that I keep it in the house. It's my favorite, and it's, as a matter of fact, it's such a favorite, I put it on the cover of the book. But the reason it's my favorite axe is because it's never been used. It still has the original label that was put on it, probably like 1938, that axe, somewhere in that period that was built. So here's an axe, still has the label on it. It's still a nice factory blue, got a brand new handle in it. And the reason I like it so much is because it's exactly the way today is the way it came out of the factory in the 1930s. The other day I was to an auction, and farm auction, and they had hay wagons and tools and tractors and everything for sale. And I walked by the wagon, and here sat an axe. I'd only ever seen one of them before in my life. It was called a Plum Tasmanian. It was made by Plum Axe Company, and it was shaped like an Australian racing axe. And I looked at that, and I couldn't believe my eyes because it was brand new. The label was still on it, yet it was a 30 or 40-year-old axe, but nobody had ever touched it. And so I waited, and I was real calm and collected, and I bid, and I pretended I wasn't real interested in it, and I got the axe. And then as soon as he said sold, yeah, I did my little dance, and yes. And I brought it home and cleaned it up, and I've got it in the house now, tucked away in a nice drawer. It's one of my favorite axes. Fire up and back.
I collect prison and jail memorabilia, old, authentic prison items, prison issued pieces, handcuffs, leg irons, restraints, paperwork, presidential pardons, things like that. I've always had a fascination with locks, restraints, handcuffs, things like that. I've always liked the mechanical aspects of it, and starting to collect handcuffs and other kinds of locks. Then all of a sudden, oh, here's a badge from a prison, here's a book about a prison, here's a wanted poster for somebody famous from a prison, this kind of thing, and just kind of escalated from there. I have an addictive personality. When I collect something or when I start to accumulate something, 3, 5, 10 pieces is just never enough. I get deeper interested in it, so I start accumulating more. You can have the world's largest collection of ceramic ashtrays made in the shape of cats. But if nobody else has an interest in them, they only have a value to you. These items were important to me to share because I'm getting to see other people appreciating my efforts to accumulate this stuff and put it in one place and clean it up and show it. Most people don't catch the idea that, oh, this guy's got a prison collection or anything like that. I've had a few jokes made at my expense because I've got a prison toilet. Yes, indeed, I do. And so, oh yeah, he even has a prison toilet. But once they see it in the volume of the collection, then they start to understand why I have that, as well as all these thousands of other items as well. The closest this collection will ever come to being complete is the day I can add an original electric chair to it. And actually I've been working on one from an estate for 5.5 years now. I'm hoping it finally comes through, because that's the ultimate collectible for any prison collection, would be to have an electric chair. Good old Charles Manson, everybody knows him or has heard about him. This is off of original prison ID card. This was actually confiscated from another inmate by a guard when he found the other inmate heading for the photo lab with Charlie's original ID photo. And evidently they thought they were going to change the number on it, and Charlie could of course then just walk right out of prison saying, "See, that's not me, it doesn't have the right number on it." This little pair of handcuffs is called the Bean Giant. They are probably the most notorious pair of handcuffs because of Harry Houdini. They're just another pair of handcuffs, but the gentleman that designed them offered a $500 reward to anybody that could get out of them. Harry Houdini was the first person to successfully get out of these and claim the $500 reward. They're extremely impossible to pick because your hands were so close together and yet separated by this solid bridge rather than a little chain. I collect because the best friends I have in my life are people that I met through collecting, and that includes my wife. And it's something you can all identify with when you're all collectors, whether it's the world's largest collection of milk bottles or whether it's an extremely large collection of prison jail stuff. It's something that's part of a community, that's a fun part of a world to be in. It's a very relaxed, fun part.
I collect shoes, milk glass, Barbies, dolls, coins, stamps, postcards, little Limoges boxes, beads, just about everything. Collecting for me is very addictive. I can't go into a thrift store if you know, and not see something and not buy it, because I think, oh, I don't have that. I need that. And it's crazy. The thing I get out of collecting Barbies is it reminds me of my childhood. I loved playing Barbies as a kid, and I still do. I like to take my Barbies out of the box. I love to dress them in all of the formals that I liked as a kid. I've got all the furniture. I just love to play with them. This is the original Barbie and Ken, pale-faced Ken. And Midge. The way I do the clothes, I pack them, and then each one has a name, and they had the date that they were issued. So I've got, you know, all the clothes. My grandmother made Barbie clothes. All the outfits that Barbie had, she would make me an outfit to match. So I had matching Barbie, you know, me and Barbie match, you know. So when I find something that I need for my collection, it's like ecstatic. It's the most wonderful feeling. I can't imagine people that don't collect and don't have, you know, it's like not being able to breathe. It's like, I love collecting. It's very hard to understand. And, you know, it's like, I'm crazy, you know. I can't imagine not collecting. I don't know. That's my obsession.
I collect guitars with pictures on them. The first cowboy guitar I got was a singing cowboy guitar. It shows a camp scene, and it's a real dandy. It's the the reason I got it, it was the first one I found. I'd been looking and looking for a cowboy guitar. Occasionally I would find one, but they wouldn't sell it, not at any price. When it comes to guitars, I definitely have an addictive personality. Sometimes I'll see a guitar and that's all I can think of for 3 or 4 days. You know, of how beautiful it was, how it sounded, how bad I wanted it. And it takes a few days for that feeling to even pass or slightly diminish in some cases. So, yeah, guitars are very addictive. You know, if I think about what's more important to me, hunting it down or finding the guitar or owning the guitar, it's definitely the hunt. It's what you get excited about. You're searching, and you know you're anticipating. You're worried that it will cost too much, or that you're excited that you can get a really good deal on it, or something. That for emotion is definitely more important than owning it. Once you have it, I mean, they're nice, but it's all about the hunt of finding them. These guitars were originally bought through the mail. It was mail order catalogs. Sears and Roebuck, Montgomery Ward's, both offered a section in their catalog that would involve musical instruments. And for a few dollars more, you can get a guitar with a stencil on it. It would be a picture of a cowboy or a palm tree or something, and it depended on what kind of music that you wanted to play on your guitar. I do have other collections. The other collections that I used to be collect antique firearms, and as a kid I collected bugs, and later I collected stamps, and later I collected coins and dollar money from around the world. The reason I would collect things is often a mystery to me. Why would I find one object desirable and another object, you know, less desirable? I think other people that collect are absolutely crazy. They should stop it immediately. If there was one thing I'd like to say about collecting guitars and trying to get that Zorro guitar that I've been looking for. So someone out there who's watching this film has that Zorro guitar, and now you know I need it, so let me know.
I'm pretty impressed with where it's taken him. As he got into being a teenager, Duran Duran, their music just kind of caught him, caught his ear, and he became very passionate about it and loved them. I couldn't ask for a better son in my life.
I am a Duran Duran poster archivist. First and foremost, a fan, an absolute passionate fan of Duran Duran. But my particular avenue that I've pursued, much to my parents' curiosity over the years, is collecting Duran Duran memorabilia, specifically Duran Duran posters from all over the world. And I have ended up with an archive featuring the largest collection of Duran Duran posters in the world. A lot of my collections are organized by size. I would say in excess of 700 to 800 posters. When I hear a Duran Duran song, it absolutely transforms me. It elevates my mood, and I cannot simply just listen to the band. It's an absolute experience, whether it's going to a Duran concert. It's a very emotional, I call it emotional gravity. Their career represents milestones in my own life. I can actually chart some of my favorite, most meaningful moments in terms of when a specific album came out. And so they've really provided the soundtrack to my life. I first started out as a fan like everyone else, but after a while, I would go into my room and deposit my latest acquisitions, books and articles, and I was always paying close attention to whether the books were standing upright and what the temperature was in the room, and it was an actual slow evolution. I cared a lot about the welfare of the collection, and I felt like there was a value in what I was collecting that was much bigger than me, bigger than the band even. My name is Durandi, and welcome to the Durandi Collection. This is my vault, where I keep hundreds of Duran Duran posters and assorted memorabilia. I have my posters in boxes, archival boxes right here. And over here we have books assorted by country of origin. And I have smaller fold-out posters in here, large newspaper features from various publications around the world. And my articles from around the world are sorted by size, so you have about 9 by 12 size over here, and down on below there are 8 by 10 size, so there is a method to my madness. Sometimes I'm asked if I get too attached to objects, like my memorabilia, and actually I very much feel like these objects represent my identity and who I've become because of my passion. This memorabilia is collectively representative of Duran Duran's legacy. So it's not that I get so attached to each item, but it's what they represent altogether. This photograph is especially dear to my heart. It shows me at around age 13 holding 2 Duran Duran tapes. On one side is my cousin Xander, and on the other side is my sister. And it probably best represents what possessed me when I first started learning about Duran Duran, being surrounded by their music and the lyrics and the visuals, and it was a combination that proved very seductive. While I'm surrounded by all these artifacts that have given me so much joy and satisfaction over the years, I just want to say to anyone who might be considering following their passion or skeptical about what might result from following their heart, do it. Don't give it a second thought. Really enrich yourself, do what makes you happy, because there's no substitute for that. And I also want to say a big, huge, heartfelt thank you to Duran Duran for inspiring me and driving me to such heights and helping me really discover who I am and who I want to be.
I collect gum machine jewelry, but for the most part it's jewelry, but sometimes there's a figurine that will strike me. I've been collecting gum machine for about 28 years, although the majority of it has probably been the past 15 years. I have spent a fair amount of money on this, and I get things and I think, well, this isn't worth 25 cents. But there's just that thrill of not knowing, you know, it comes out in a little egg and not knowing, you know, it's that thrill of not knowing exactly what you'll get. It's sort of like gambling, I guess, in a sense. And sometimes I tell myself I'm only going to spend 8 quarters, and if I don't get what usually there's something I have my eye on that's on the display. When I got to college, I discovered that I was using, there was a machine there that dispensed some jewelry. I particularly remember skull rings, and I discovered that it was broken, and so, you know, you could just get as many as you want and just keep turning. I would put in a few dimes, you know, just for decency, but I would get like 5 or 10 capsules at a time, and I think that's what really sort of got me started. They lure you with something like this piece, and of course I really wanted this, and I got a lot of inferior pieces, you know, maybe, you know, it might take $8 to get one of these pieces. But when you do, yeah, you really feel great. You've gotten the prize in the machine. I don't know, how many they put in there. These I associate with springtime. It's my spring collection, I guess you might say. I was excited when I found these. I mean, they're ones I like the ones with the sparkles in them more because I do wear jewelry out dancing. So if the lighting is dim, but there are spotlights that will make jewelry sparkle.
I don't think my collection will ever be complete because I think it's ongoing. It's an obsession. Again, that old joke, moreitis, but there's more truth to that than you think. You think you got it under control. You hear one, you track it down, you buy it. It's the hunt. It's the fun part. I have now, what I have to say first is, a lot of guys will never answer how many tractors they got. Most guys ask me, how many tractors you got? I said, I don't know, because I really don't 100% know to the number. And if you can count them, you don't have very many. But I got about 100, somewhere in there. It bounces around. Yeah, have you ever heard that, saying, moreitis? Like, I don't need any more tractors. I got plenty, but they got that disease, moreitis, and you think you got it under control. Like, I don't need any more tractors. I mean, what do I need another tractor for? I got 100 of them. But all of a sudden, that one will be out there, like that International with a V8 in it. I didn't have one. And a friend of mine down in California called me up and said, hey, I found one of them 1468s. You interested? And I said, nah, I don't need it. All of a sudden, I started thinking, you know what? I'd kind of like to have one of them. So you think you got it under control. All of a sudden, it's the only thing you can think about is this dadgum International. So you justify it. Well, and all of a sudden, son of a gun, you figure out a way to pay for it and you buy it. So you got moreitis. It's a bad disease. And, a lot of guys laugh at me when I tell them I got a disease called moreitis. They go, what are you talking about? You think about it. I'm glad it isn't alcohol. I'd be the worst street drunk on earth. Oh, this, in John Deere, for the first 100 years they were in business, they primarily sold equipment, implements. Then in 1918, they bought out the Waterloo Gasoline Engine Company, Waterloo, Iowa. 1924, they made their first tractor that said John Deere on the front. Of all the John Deere tractors in the world, this is the 131st tractor they built. This little crawler here, that's the first crawler that John Deere built. These tractors were a John Deere tractor, and they were assembled in Yakima, Washington, by Linderman Brothers. They made 1,880 of them back in 1939 to 1948. And they were just a little small crawler. They had a high mortality rate. So to have one of the first production of a John Deere crawler, pretty desirable, Same way with that old International with a V8 in it. Not a lot of guys got one. Not that they were the best tractor ever built, but not a lot of guys got one. It's my whole life, really. I mean, my wife's real supportive, and we go to tractor shows, and pretty much everything revolves around tractors, and equipment, truck shows. I don't hunt or fish. Like I used to deer hunt, now I John Deere hunt. I still deer hunt, but it's John Deere. And that's what I enjoy is the hunt. It's the hunt, I mean, a lot of guys say, well, when are you going to paint all these? When are you going to restore them? And I said, probably won't. I'm a collector. You know, there's a difference between a collector and a restorer. Big difference.
Yeah, so we've just finished the Kiss bathroom. Check it out. It looks really good. Oh, hey, Vince. You can see, starting at the top, the vinyl. Some of this is pretty valuable. That's why we have it tacked to the ceiling. Over here, the poster from the Kiss convention in '97. That's pretty cool. Lunch boxes, of course. We've got the hand-hewn Kiss metallic logo belt buckle. Kiss ornaments here, of course. This is the Kiss Field Guide, which does list every single piece of Kiss memorabilia ever created and its street value. So that's a pretty good item to have in here. Gene mask, McFarlane figures, Kiss trivia game. I'm only about 30% on that trivia game, so it's pretty. It's not minutia. That's real trivia. The nesting dolls up in the opera box. Kiss My Ass tribute record. All the Spin magazines with the alternate covers. That was about '91. The makeup menu from the reunion tour at the Gorge. Of course, the Kiss toothbrush plays Rock and Roll All Night. Lots of Hot Wheels, incense. I mean, between lunch boxes and clock radios and garbage cans and sleeping bags and caskets, they have more stuff for you to collect than anything. And in that way, they really do perpetuate a culture of collectiveness designed for collectors with expendable cash, because there's never something you can't buy. I mean, the Kiss wine, what are you going to do? Drink it? You know, I had all this Kiss memorabilia, and then when my wife and I got married in 1995, as a wedding gift, we got this Kiss toilet seat. And then we bought a house, and we had an extra bathroom, and it seemed like Kiss memorabilia, Kiss toilet seat, extra bathroom. It just seemed to make sense. It's functional art. It's a functional collection. My most prized piece of this entire collection isn't even up. The Kiss toilet seat is number 2. Number 1, a tablecloth personally autographed by Gene Simmons in 1979. You can see it's a map of New York City, complete with the boroughs and Manhattan. Here's the World Trade Centers, remember them? Brooklyn Bridge, United Nations, Empire State Building. Here's Queens, where Gene was from, Gene and Paul. Here's Gene's room number, 2208. He's in room 2208, right? And the authentic autograph, real authentic piece by Gene Simmons, 1979. This is absolutely priceless. That's why I keep it in my garage in the bathroom. You know, I guess I've always collected Kiss because, first of all, I have that sick collector's gene. Second of all, I've got this Gene who's always made it easy for me to collect because he's put all this stuff out in front of me. What am I supposed to do? I got to grab it. And then third of all, it's something I can do with my own son now because he's got that same collector's gene and he loves Kiss. And we can just pick up all these stuff together because we're completists. Hello?
I got to use the bathroom.
Okay.
My name is Jamie Berg, and I have about over 100 hula hoops, and I love to hula hoop. When I started hula hooping, I just thought it was fun, and then I realized one day I just couldn't go a day without hula hooping.
Adding a new element to your game.
You thought I was going to be distracted, didn't you?